everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I'm doing a series of videos where I interview friends and family to just share some stories and experiences that they've learned in their first years of teaching. But today is a little special because for my second interview, I'm talking to my brother, Dave, who just recently finished his first year coaching rugby. And I thought it'd be really interesting to hear his coaching stories because I feel there are similarities with teaching and coaching. And so I thought it'd be really interesting to hear from him. And so as a bonus, at the end, I've also included a video of him skydiving. It's a really cool story about how one of his players who graduated from high school asked if he would go skydiving with him, and he did. And so I included that bonus video at the end. I hope you enjoy it. Is that the smolder from the rock?
Oh, I know. Blue steel.
That's what it looks like.
Blue steel from Zoolander.
That's too funny.
Felt pretty good. Good chemistry. We're just kind of rolling off each other like we do in regular life.
Dad, see it.
Enjoy.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to have my brother Dave here with me today. How you doing, Dave?
Doing good. Doing good.
All right. So my brother is the second person who's volunteered to be on my YouTube channel today. We're going to talk about some tips to help new teachers and also to help coaches. So he coaches rugby at a high school in Indiana. So I'm super excited to have him share what he's learned during his time as a coach. So take it away, Dave. Share with us some of your knowledge. Take it away.
Experiences learned. So I just finished my first year of coaching rugby, which is
sweet,
totally awesome. Yeah, it was just unexpected. Just one of those things that just kind of happened. So I was fortunate to get that opportunity and totally loved it.
So for someone, how would you explain rugby to somebody who's never seen it before?
I would explain rugby as it's very similar to football, and I don't want to get into a whole history lesson on it, but so soccer is where rugby comes from. So what happened is that in the town of Rugby, there was a boy who picked up the soccer ball and ran with it, and all the other players, they tried to tackle him. And that's how the sport was created. And the name of that person is Webb Ellis, and that's the name of the World Cup. So everyone plays 4 years, and every 4 years for the World Cup, which is called the Webb Ellis Cup. And so the sport is named after a town in England. That's what it's named after. And so that's where rugby gets its origins, and that's where American football gets its origins. So when rugby came to the United States, a player decided to throw the ball forward, and the player went and caught it. And that's how American football came from rugby. And that's where there's so many similarities. So if people ever wonder where touchdown came from? That came from rugby. So like in order to score in the try zone, you have to touch the ball down to the ground for the play to be done and for you to score. And so that's where touchdown comes from in American football. In rugby, they call it a try. But so to answer your question, similar to football, a lot of the rules come from it. So have you ever seen offensive line and defensive line line up before the hike? That's how we do in a scrum. A scrum starts off the exact same way. You line up against each other. 8 of your biggest guys against 8 of my biggest guys, and then we hit the scrum together at the same time. So a lot of similarities because they come from each other, these 3 sports.
And what are the positions you just said?
So in the traditional 15s for rugby union and rugby league, it's broken down into it's very fan friendly. So the number you wear in your back tells you what position you're playing. It tells the crowd what position you're playing. It tells the opposition what position you're playing. So it's 1 through 15, broken up into 2 segments. 1 through 8, which is a forward, and 9 through 15, which are the backs. The forwards are usually like the bigger, stronger guys. They're the ones that you see in the scrums, and the backs are the sleeker, faster guys that you see. So forwards and backs, and just look at their numbers. So if it's number 7, you know that person's a forward just based on their number.
How did you become a coach? So, Dave is coaching at a high school where my niece is at. So really involved in the community. So as a parent, right? Like, how did you get involved? Because I feel like that is how athletics happens, right? You've got volunteers, whether it's teachers or parents, that get involved, and that's how we're able to have sports in high school. So that's the reality. So maybe you can share a little bit about how you came to be a coach of rugby.
So I knew a couple kids. There was a couple boys that were playing, and it was their first year.
Okay.
And so rugby's kind of a sport where it's not necessarily really easy to pick up by watching. It looks like a mash of like unorganized violence. if you don't know the rules, right? I totally get
right.
it.
Because you're like, where's the helmets? That would be cool if I could come and see and visit.
Yeah.
Watch
If
one
you
of
end
the
up coming and
games.
staying, it'd be awesome.
Be awesome.
Check it out.
Be there. I'll be there. All right. Well, it's all about the rugby.
I know. I'm just having a ball. It's so much fun to be able to, I mean, this was, Crystal, my wife, this was like her encouragement, because when I was approached to coach, I was like, I don't know. I got the family responsibilities. I got work. I got church responsibilities. Do I really need one more thing on my plate?
It's a lot to coach. I mean, it is a sacrifice of your time, for sure.
Yeah, and on the family's time too, right? Because those are hours I'm away from the home. But she's like, you love rugby and you love working with the youth. Why not put those two things together? And I was like, you're a genius. So like,
nice.
So she's right. It's been like amazing.
That's cool.
I've been loving every minute of it.
I love it. Good job, Crystal. Pew, pew.
Good job, Kowika. Good job.
Too funny. Okay, for reals though, for reals.
So the club has been around for 20 years. So it's been around for a little while.
Okay.
And so 2 of the boys that I knew, they learned that I played before, in the college years. And so they asked me to come check it out. I'm like, yeah, cool. I'll come check you out.
Nice.
And so I started coming to a couple of the games and meeting with them after the game, or, taking like video footage and then breaking down film with them to explain why this happened or what's going on. Because when you're on the field, everything's happening so fast and you can't really remember specific things, but we can use the footage to go back. And so, when I first showed up, when I first started coming around, the rugby board members and some of the parents started to notice me, because they're like, who's that guy that like keeps talking to our players?
Yeah.
Like
taking video.
It's like
scout.
he seems to know them, the boys like him. And so they started coming up to me and asking me questions, and they're just like, hey, if you want to get involved, we'd love to have you as like a board member, or, whatever kind of fits your schedule, maybe coaching. And so after a few games, I was like, I know that coaching is like a big commitment, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to add something else to my plate. Right. But after speaking with the players and breaking down footage, and I was reminded how much I love this game. And so I approached the head coach after one of the games, and he was like, we'd love to have you. And so that's what started my whole rugby journey. And
nice.
But yeah.
So in the club, how many teams do you play?
Oh, you mean like in the state of Indiana?
Yeah.
So our club is 20 years old, and we have 4 teams, boys and girls though. So it's like there's more than 4 teams, but I'm just going to break it down by grade level. So from
Okay.
2nd grade to 12th grade. So we have a flag team that's 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. We have a 5th and 6th grade team, tackle, 7th and 8th grade team, tackle, and then high school, 9 through 12. And so there's like boys and girls of these ones in between as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just tell you about the high school boys. So like the highest level in for our club. So there are about 35 rugby teams in the state of Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
and that's who we play against. But of those about 35, 5 of them are elite, which means that they're super league teams, and we're one of the 5. We're a super league team, and so this is why scouts always look at us, because we fall in the rankings as a super league.
Okay.
Sometimes the middle schoolers will help us out, especially if our numbers are low on a practice. We'll just combine, and so we get a chance to that the coaches get a chance to coach up the middle schoolers, which they appreciate, to get that kind of attention. And they come watch our games, the younger teams, to see what it looks like, right? Because they're learning about the game, but they come watch us play to see how it's played. So that, oh, okay, that's why coach said this or whatever. So that's cool. Cool support.
So have you thought about putting together like a team of adults to play rugby?
So there are, like, not from our club. So there is an adjacent town has a club.
Oh, that's
And so yeah, so there's a men's one there. So there are men's clubs. I can't remember how many, but the Super League men's club from Indiana is just one. There's only one that represents the state because they're Super League.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you mentioned this one of your players where it was his first year. What was the hardest thing for them to learn when you're coaching rugby? Like, what was the hardest thing for them to grasp? Was it the
For the first
passing?
year player.
Yeah, that
Oh,
first year player.
yes. Like the first fundamental we try and teach is the passing, because it's a little bit of a mystery on how we're able to get it to spin and pass it
Right,
backwards.
yes,
Trippy, right?
exactly.
So we work on that with all first year players, because it's a basic fundamental on offense. And then tackling form is really important, because you don't wear a helmet. So you have to have good form and technique, or else you're going to get a concussion. So on offense, it's passing. On defense, it's tackling. Those are the basic things that we got to teach, and teach them well with some sound explanation, very clear for them. Because when you start playing in a game, your first game is going to be everything's moving so fast because everything's new. You don't understand all the rules. So you get so you got to make sure, hey, just make sure you learn how to tackle correctly, and your passes are solid. That's all you need to know on your first game.
Right. Because I was thinking about that player that you said was doing football and rugby. What was that his first year? I mean, was it confusing for him to play both?
So this one player had been playing football for over 7 years, and so it was his first year playing rugby. He's always wanted to do it, but his parents, there are some, I will admit, some like negative attachments to the sport. People think that you got to be crazy, and if you look at the stats, though, you'll see that there are like less head injuries in rugby than football. So, and we attribute that to good form in your tackling. So our player, when he would go to football practice and they would watch him, they're like, this guy must play rugby, because like his tackling was so sound, right? Because when you have a helmet and pads on, you just run any old kind way, right, into someone with reckless abandonment. But he was low, he was rapping correctly, and it looked good. And they're like, you play rugby? He's like, yep. He said, thought so, right? So can always tell the skills translate over different sports. So it's cool. Good.
That's really cool. And so how was it getting started with the other coaches and getting to know the other kids?
The other coaches they are super humble. And I think that helps if you work with staff that are willing to take constructive criticism and take it in stride and just always want to try to improve. And that's what these coaches were like. They were like, hey, we're kind of struggling in our season. And so when I offered my services, oh man, we would love anything, right, that you can offer. So I started coming out, making a few suggestions, and the coaches are, let's try it, let's do it. And so that helps because I don't want to step in anyone's feet.
Right.
Sometimes we run into that situation at work. You're kind of the new person on the bottom of the totem pole. So
right. And you got some ideas and some people get offended.
So I didn't want to come out guns blazing. I mean, that is my style. My style is to come out guns blazing. And so I didn't want to do that and like turn anyone off. So I just took my time. But some things that I've learned in closing up my first year is you get as much out of the players as much as you put into them. And so what does that mean? So on the field, teaching rugby, that's not that hard for the coaches. We know the game, they love the game, we teach them. It's the other parts. So like in rugby, we have this expression that better people make better rugby players. So the time you spend with them talking about character and preparation, authenticity, all these values that we treasure in the sport, that's where you get like maximum effort from the players when they see that like you care about them as an individual and not just like an athlete on the field. It's got to do a job.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's really important when you're working with youth to establish, well, even working with people, but to establish that relationship of trust. I mean, it's the same in the classroom, when because mom always used to say, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And, you hear it and you think, yeah, that's true. But then when you really experience it, it's absolutely true. Like you could be the best at whatever, but a teenager doesn't really care about that as much unless they know that you really care about them. So I know that you're really good at showing them how much you care and how excited you are and your energy and your athleticism, everything that you're able to share with them. So how was it like the first days and weeks when you were coaching and just getting to know everyone and getting your feet wet as a coach?
Well, that investment with the players takes a lot of time. And so when it comes to tasks, we try to be efficient and do it quick. When it comes to people, longer is better. Like more time and investment is better, not quick and get it out. So I tried to learn as much as I could, like about the players, their interests, their hobbies, what's going on with school, what's up with family, do they have a girlfriend? Like all these things, I want to show them that I don't see them as like a rugby player. I see them as a person. And so that part is like really fun for me. I really love like being with people. So just shooting the breeze, hearing about life, that's interesting for me. And so that I guess I would call it the building the relationship. That portion is fun. You got to do it brick by brick. But why would I ask them all these questions? It's because when I learn that maybe they have an extracurricular activity, I'm going to come to it. So some of our players, they play football. So I go to their football games and like they totally trip out. They're like, I just went to a game this last weekend and one of my players, he came up to me later. So after the game, we're at our practice now. And he's like, Dave, it was super cool, man, that you came to my game. That was cool. I was not expecting that. Then the parents loved it because the parents are like, who's this guy? Right? I mean, he's your rugby coach at a football game. That's cool,
Yeah.
So even you get to buy in with the folks too.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. And that's something that they'll always remember, And I like what you said about how it takes time. I think that's so true. And a lot of times as teachers or coaches, I mean, there's a lot going on and then there's parents and everybody's trying to weigh in, but really going with what you feel in terms of getting to know them, and being able to communicate on the level where they're willing to really listen to you. And I think a lot of that comes from building that relationship, being there at their other activities, showing your support and getting to know the families too. I remember the first time I watched a rugby game, not live, but I think I was watching the All Blacks. I mean, they are just so fast, so fast. I mean, these are like big guys, and you think, wow, how did he cover the length of the field in such a short period of time? That dude's sprinting. So do you spend a lot of time conditioning?
Yes. First game is September 18th, and we're in week 4 of practice.
Wow.
So because we're playing sevens, and so in sevens, you have less players on the field versus the traditional 15s, but the field is the exact same size. It's 100 meters by 70 meters. So if you have half as many players, you got to run twice as much.
Yeah.
So I've been having them run a lot these first 3 or 4 weeks, and I know where they need to be to where I know that they're conditioned. They should be able to do a set of drills that I've got set up for them under a specific amount of time. So we've been adding reps to this with each passing week. And now I'm at that point where I'm timing them because they need to do it at a certain speed.
Right.
And when they can do it all, I know that they're ready. They're ready to play.
Yeah. So what are some drills that you tell them to work on at home? Like when they're not at practice? What are some things that they can do, over the weekend to help improve?
Well, so for conditioning wise, so there's like conditioning or skills, and it's based on the player's needs. So conditioning in general, I encourage them to run long distance, to run at least 2 or 3 miles on their own away from us. So if they want to throw that in like on a Saturday or something, or we don't practice on Wednesdays, so if they want to throw that in there on Wednesdays, I encourage them to run long distance, because it just only helps with your legs and endurance. I mean, it's a lot of running in rugby. And what makes it tough is that it's not running in a straight line. It's like you're running, you're hitting someone, you're falling on the ground, you got to get back up, you got to run again, you're going to get hit, you're going to fall down, you got to get back up. So it's always like sprint, stop, hit the ground, jump up, tackle someone, catch a ball. There's always like, you're constantly moving. And so this is what builds your stamina.
That's true. You need a lot of stamina. So as a coach, how much time do you spend preparing for practice?
Quite a bit. I'm looking for my notebook. I have a notebook, this big binder, where it's like to get my thoughts out. What I've learned is that if I get my thoughts out while it's in there, instead of trying to hold on to it and be like, I'll come back to that later, I forget stuff. Yeah. So I have like a little notebook that I carry with me that I just stick stuff in there. Like if I have an idea, I have a creative idea for a specific drill or a play that just comes to mind, I jot it down so that I won't forget it in the moment. And then I just review it, like later in the day. So that's what I do to try and so the work that I put in is constant. Yeah. So like I'm at home doing my work, whatever. And if a thought crosses my mind, I pull it out, I write it down, whether it's like about a player, if it's about a drill, if it's about a meeting for rugby, I jot it down, put it aside, and then I can forget about it, right? Because like I don't have to hold on to that memory. I just let it go back to my work, for like an hour, and then something else comes up, pull it out, jot it down, put it to the side, forget about it. So that helps me to not be so distracted with the task at hand. Yeah,
I like that. I like what you said. I like your ideas. You got some good ideas. I like what you're doing, Coach. I like what you're doing. Were there any hard lessons or mistakes, things that you're like, oh man, could have done that better?
The sport, I know. So like when we get on the pitch, that's all easy, like for me. Other facets of being a part of an entity, like a club, I wasn't so familiar with. So for example, like working with a board. So
Okay.
there's a rugby board, and I don't want to say like there's like crazy politics, but there's there's like a process that needs to be gone through, and there's like safety measures that I never thought about when I played in college and I played in the men's league. We're adults, right? But like we're working with high school kids. They're
Yeah.
kids. They're minors, right? So it's like things that I totally just would overlook because I'm trying to mirror my experience with them. But I got to remember they're minors. So we have that to navigate, the board members to understand their processes. So I think that applies too with like with teachers. If you're a brand new teacher, you got to learn the processes of the administration.
That's
The
true.
superintendent, the principals, right? It's got to
Right.
learn that stuff.
And that's the thing, right? Is that there is politics, I think, everywhere you go. And I think it's just one of those things that's unspoken but known. Whether it's politics within the organization or the external organizations that support your organization, or just amongst the coaches and the kids and the parents. I mean, even within the community. I mean, there's always that looming around the edges of anything that we do. And what, I guess, advice would you give a new coach that's going in and just like you has some experience in college, but not necessarily coaching teenagers?
Advice, probably the advice I would give, the sport aside, because you got to know the sport obviously to teach it, and we're not too worried about coaches because they usually understand the game.
Yep.
Probably the advice I would give to like a first year coach would be stay open minded, and
Mm.
positive reinforcement is huge. I guess what I had learned is that every coach has their own style, and that's fine.
So
Right? It's like
true.
every teacher has their own teaching style. The coaches that I coach with, we have a great chemistry, which comes. So we have a coach that's like I want to say like kind of very hard nosed. You know, like he's just kind of a very matter of fact. You know, you're gonna see him yelling a lot. That's like that's his style, right? We have
Right.
another coach that's very cerebral. You know, and then we have the positive coach. So I'm the guy that's like the cheerleader slash like you can always
Mm.
count on me to get positive reinforcement.
Okay, that's cool.
And so
Sounds like
the
a good
mesh of us
balance.
three together
Mm-hmm.
turns out a great balance. So
Yeah.
for a new coach, I'd be like, hey, find out what that balance is with the people you work with. And because like a good leader can identify people's strengths and magnify it. So if you can find out what it is,
Yeah.
they don't like other coaches don't need to be the positive reinforcement guy, right? That's my strength. But like we sure need some guy that's a little bit more hard nosed or someone that's like more cerebral on the game. So identify strengths of the people that you work with and just learn that like you don't have to be that guy if that's their strength. Just be yourself. And
Right.
kids notice that. Kids notice that when you're fake. So don't try to be something you're not. Just be yourself, and they appreciate that. You know.
Right.
Now I got a question for you. So when has there been like some times where you've seen some teachers maybe not being themselves, not
Teachers
being
not
authentic?
not
Yeah.
being authentic, not being themselves and not being authentic. I think sometimes it comes out in different scenarios. So, for example, um, sometimes you see it where people feel like they have to prove themselves. And so they're like a little more intense or go over the top in terms of trying to prove themselves, that whether they're proving themselves to maybe their child that might be there. Um,
Like overcompensation kind of thing.
right.
I
Or
said it. You didn't say it. I said it.
or maybe they're trying to impress someone, and it could be an administrator or whoever, or there could be um, maybe news cameras around, and so you kind of see that come into play where they're not as authentic.
Makes sense.
Like there was this teacher that I was
Here we
just
go.
I was just
Here we
talking
go.
about this, but there was this one teacher that
This is Jane Doe.
I worked with, and he would get really irritated. He would talk about sometimes there's, the kind of people that photo op kind of people. And I would, who don't necessarily want to be there, trying to, I guess, boots on the ground, doing the work. But when it's successful, then all of a sudden they want to come and get some of the recognition for a successful program. And so you talk about that's the photo op kind of people that want to be there just to smile and take the photo. And I thought, and you would see that sometimes. I think,
Sure.
man, that's too bad. But
how do you deal with that? How do you like navigate that environment?
Yeah. So for me, I'm trying to think when there was a time when I feel like they're doing that to me. I don't think I really had an experience where they did that to me, but I did witness sometimes where things like that would happen. And you think, well, is that hurting anyone? Because if you're in a situation where you recognize that it's going to hurt the kids or hurt people, then I feel like you have to speak up and say something. But when, you think, well, overall, is it hurting anyone? Is it helping in any way? Then, you may not necessarily have to confront anything. But a lot of times you just kind of learn, well, I guess that's somebody I'm going to stay far away from, because if they're going to, jump in and, into these situations, and just kind of discerning whether or not this person is someone who's going to throw you under the bus, and you need to stay far away from them, and just kind of learning what are their motivations, what are their intentions? Are they here to help the kids or to help the parents or to help the community, or are they there to help themselves?
And that, you know what? That's tough to navigate because it's like in the belly, not in the back, right? So like when someone does something, you want to be able to feel comfortable to communicate that to them and not talk about them behind their back. But at the same time, you don't want it to be a landmine, so what is it really worth? You got to weigh the pros and cons.
Right, exactly. And the thing is you also have to pay attention to the fact that kids are watching you. They're watching everybody and what they say, what they don't say. I mean, kids, teenagers, they're so observant. They pick up on everything. And then you hear them talking about this person or that person, because a lot of times, whatever opinion you might have, if you wait long enough and if you're around the kids long enough, you'll hear that same opinion come from the kids because they're so straightforward and honest.
I mean,
like, have you had that experience where the kids you've heard them share opinions about you or other coaches?
Well, what you're just saying reminded me of a story about how there's such a strong influence that the students, the players are watching. So this happened just like the other week. We were at practice, and like I was riding one player kind of hard, and which is not normally my style, right? Because I'm always like the positive guy, that's always like,
all right, you can do it.
Yeah. And so like one player just could not figure out what I was saying, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I was like yelling at him, I was like, and so after practice was done, I was like, I should probably talk with the mom and see what's going on, if there's anything going on. So I reached out to the mom, and I was like, hey, are there any issues with your child, like a learning disability or any mental challenges that I should be aware of?
Good point.
And then she hit me with this list, and I was like, oh my God, I felt so bad. So the next practice, I got everyone together, and I explained to this one player, that like I was acting like an idiot in public, so I got to apologize in public. So I told him that like I was sorry, for riding him so hard, and that that I'll do better, and that I just learned from your mom that there's some challenges that you have, with learning and mental illness and stuff, and so I recognize that stuff is real, and that I was just really sorry. And I told the players, I was like, you guys hear me say it all the time, that better people make better rugby players, and sometimes even coaches need to be reminded. So I took that opportunity because, like you said, they're watching. So you can't just be like giving people a hard time, and when you're wrong, just act like nothing happened. You got to own up to that stuff.
No, I love that. Because that is also a teaching moment. You know what I mean? That the kids see that very real experience, and right, because you're who they look up to. So being able to recognize that you made a mistake and that you want to apologize, I mean, that's huge, because when you think about it, in the lives of kids, like how often do they see or hear adults apologize? Like that's so rare. And so that's also an opportunity where they can see how humble that you are, because it does take, an amount of humility to apologize, to recognize that you did something wrong and apologize. And that way they can say, wow. And so if they're in a situation, they can go back and think, well, I remember Coach Dave and how he handled this situation and apologize, and how things turned out. So I think that's really powerful, because we are all learning
So
ourselves. I
true.
mean, mom used to share experiences of, where she did something and, had to apologize for yelling at a student. Um, and so it's true. And I think about me too. I know that there's been times where, you're just in class and there's so much going on, and kids just blurt out whatever, and, and you say things, and then you realize, oh, shucks, I gotta, let me tell them and apologize to them. I think I definitely thought, I mean, how I handle that, I think, is just from learning from mom and other experiences. So I think that that's really powerful.
You know
Um,
what I'm also learning too is I'm trying to be more aware of my mental health too, because
mm,
let's
that's good.
let's face it. I mean, like you and I, we grew up in an era where it's like from whatever our parents taught us, and like our parents, mom and dad, they were totally like we got to tell the stories. It's so good. So like they grew up in an era where it's like you just kind of work through it, you push through, you get over it. Right. This is not the generation we live in. We need to address it. And I'm starting to learn, with this generation coming up, how much mental illness is such a big deal that we just back at mom and dad's time that no, that's not a real thing. Go take out the trash, whatever. Right. So
No,
so
it's so true, right?
I got to tell
Like
the story.
mom and dad never said suck it up, but that's
That's what they
basically
meant.
the the aura that they gave off, right? Or the look, right? You just get that look of suck it up. I mean, I remember very clearly mom saying, stop crying. Right. And I
Oh
told
yeah.
Michael the story. I'm like, because he would say, in just different situations. I'm like, I was raised with a mother who said, stop crying. Right.
Yeah.
And so
I mean,
you
just
just
hearing
learn
you
to
say it,
toughen up.
I can hear her,
Right?
stop crying.
Stop crying. Right. And it's true. Like that. I think that was how being raised that way, where you just learn to suck it up and push through it, just push
Right.
through. And obviously there are other ways to deal and cope. And, we had a lot going on in terms of what we were involved with in school. And I
Mhm.
think that even though she told us to suck it up, I think we were still raised to have good self-esteem. And she um, gave a lot of positive reinforcement and motivation. So, in that contrast, it wasn't just all militaristic with, suck it up. I think there was that,
Yeah.
but then there was also that encouragement in what we were doing so that we could excel and achieve.
I, I gotta share this story about dad. So they've all got their stories, of how they quote unquote suck it up, like never wanting to go into the doctors when they're sick. That's hilarious, right? They always tell us, if you're sick, you better go to the doctor. That's what I pay insurance for. But like when they get sick, they don't they don't want to go. So with dad, I remember this one story. I love to share the story because it's like hilarious. It defines a generation here. So I remember, and you might remember this. There was like one day where he was like, "Oh, I got a toothache. I'm not
Oh
something going
no.
on here."
I
And
think
so
I
I'm
know
like,
this
"Whoa, that's crazy."
story.
I was like, hey, "You should probably go to the dentist." He's like, "Nah, that's good." Well, I saw him go into the bathroom with a pair of pliers,
Oh no.
and then about an hour later, he came out with a tooth this big. He pulled it out himself.
That's how much he was like,
I
I'm not
want to
going
say
to
he
the
like
dentist.
tied it to the door and shut the door, but pliers.
Pliers,
That's
so he's
even
like,
more hardcore. Hardcore
so
for life.
that guy yanked his own tooth because he was not going to go to the dentist. He's like, I got this. I mean, I guess when you're born and raised on a farm, you know, you find other ways to treat yourself with medical attention. But
Old
that's
school.
just one of many
That's
stories.
old school.
The boy's old school. So I
No,
love telling that
dad's
story.
threshold for pain is just incredible. Like, and I tell Michael all the time, you know, I never hear mom and dad complain about pain, like ever growing up, ever. I never hear them complain. Oh, I'm like this, that.
Well,
I
not
mean,
in public.
now they're in their 70s,
Yeah.
then we hear it a little more. But growing up, never heard them complain.
I think it's like the generation where they try and hide stuff, right? So if they're in pain, they're never going to show that in public.
Well, I mean, it's all about being
look at-
strong, right? Like there's no
Yeah,
weakness. There's no weakness.
Got to get a strong front, you know.
And I feel like that really trickles over. And actually, my friend Amber and I, we'd always talk about how like who you are fundamentally and the characteristics that you bring or who you are is what you bring to the classroom or to coaching, right? Because you could be coaching with, you know, other coaches that maybe play the same team with you, but what you experience and who you are is very unique and specific to you. So I feel like every time I think about the strength that we have to accomplish or do what we do, right? It goes back to how we were raised, but also who we are as individuals, because I think about that all the time about like what you were just saying about mental illness. I mean, that's something that people talk about today, but we didn't talk about that when we were growing up, right?
No.
And so I think, well, how did that generation, how did we cope with all of these different things? And I think that a lot of it came down to just being involved with your community, doing service, being athletics, studying, having a network of support, if it was family or friends, and not being alone. And I feel like today there's a lot of things that causes people to be isolated and not have that network or not be able to be as active or involved.
Well, in our generation, when things got, you know, hairy or we didn't like what was happening at home or school, we went to the mall, right? So kids there like, the mall? It's like, yeah, that was the place to be, you know, when we were growing up. Hit up the arcade, go shopping, go to the food court, hang with your homies, checking out the chicks. That's what we did.
You hang on Taco Bell, McDonald's.
Taco Bell, let's do this. Yeah, Alberto's.
Nice.
No.
Right. And I think that you know, because I never had mom as a teacher. And even though she retired after 40 years, that's not true. I had her for dance. But for the most part, you know, it's funny because I remember hearing her stories. And a lot of times when I'd be in the classroom and I would say things and I'd think to myself, I sound just like mom.
You do.
I sound like mom.
Well, I sound just like dad. I see the glasses.
Your hat. And I think that because I thought, how do I sound just like mom when I didn't even really have her as a teacher, right? So I feel like, again, just how we were raised, and because, so for example, classroom management, when other teachers would comment to me about, how are you so calm? You know, when kids just blurt out whatever is on their mind. And Michael would say the same thing too about seeing how I handle tough situations, meaning when people say things like, and I think that that's just how our family is, right? Where you don't really have a reaction on your face, even though you're totally processing what they said or what they did.
Inside.
Inside.
I learned that from the generation before. Inside. Keep it inside.
feel like that my response oftentimes I think comes from mom and dad in terms of like I don't just fire back. You know, I think that I respond well, I don't know, because sometimes mom will also just fire back with her response, stopping and thinking about what you're gonna say before you say it. I think is very helpful in difficult situations when you're working with teenagers, or even with coaching. I know that well, rugby isn't the same thing as coaching cheerleading, but the thing is there's conflict, right? There's conflict amongst your team or other teams, or even non rugby players or non cheerleaders, right? That there's always that rift. And I know for me, one of the difficult things was that coaching cheerleading, I mean, they're performers. I mean, they have to have the athleticism in terms of having endurance, because to be jumping up and down for all 4 quarters, running down to the end zone every time that there's a touchdown and running back. I mean, that's a lot of stamina that you need.
And with a smile on your face.
And with a
right?
smile on your face.
So like when we play rugby, I don't have to smile.
That's true. And so, you know, I
Right.
just think about how teams try to psych you out. And so if people were threatening to beat them up or whatever, that could really get into their head and affect their performance. So what are some ways that you've seen in coaching where things really get into their head, whether it's personal or just themselves or even risks on the team?
So when you invest that time within players, when you get to know them a little bit better, you're able to make a better read on them when they come to practice or when they come to a game. So when you get to know them better, you learn, yeah, everyone's got universal body language. You can figure that out. But the more that you know about the person, like, for example, if I know based on conversations with one of my players that things are kind of hard at home right now for whatever reason, you know, maybe parents are fighting or something. When they come to practice on a certain day and they look kind of down and out, that's what it could be, because I already know because I talked to them. So
yeah, that's a good point.
That's how you can kind of help, you know, with rifts and divides, because sometimes they bring that with them to the field, just like how we all do as coaches and teachers. You know, we got to be careful about bringing our personal lives and stress and anger to the classroom or to the field, because it comes off at times. So we got to be careful and watch it.
Right. And it's true, right? Because you want your players to do the same thing when you come to the field or when you come to class. You know, you want to try your best to leave that at the door, and come in and give 100%. But, you know, we're all human. And so even with teachers or coaches, I mean, if you come in and bringing your dramas to the field or to the classroom, then of course the kids are going to do that because they're still adolescent and they're still learning how to cope. And so I think that being able to recognize that the kids need help, and then also being able to give them the tools that can help them overcome whatever it is that they're struggling with. But
so I have an example actually this past week of this. So I have one player that wanted to get into football.
Okay.
So of course he asked the coaches ahead of time, would it be cool? Because right now they're both happening at the exact same time.
Okay.
And we all agree that, like, to be a rugby player, the more sports you play, the better you'll be. So we're very supportive of them, like, playing other sports. So I knew that was going on. And then he came to practice a little early, which normally he should be coming later because football practices are they kind of overlap a little bit. So when he came early, I was like, hey man, what's up? I could tell there's something kind of going on. And he was telling me, he's like, you know what? I thought my head coach for football said he was cool with rugby, but now I feel like he's kind of making me choose. And I kind of told him that, like, if I got to choose, I choose rugby. And so he was kind of so he came straight from practice. He didn't stay the whole time. And I told him, I said, hey, listen, man, we support whatever you want to do. if you want to do football, that's cool. Just know that you always got a place here in rugby. We just want you to be happy, man. And like that little talk turned him around. He was like, cool. He's like, thanks, Dave. He hit practice, and you could see that weight kind of come off. But
Yeah.
those kind of interactions only happen if you take the time to learn people and recognize what's going on in their life so that you can help them out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that because there's so much stress going on, I think, a lot of times with students, and they don't really have anybody to talk to, whether it's, whatever's going on at home, or it's academic, or it's a girlfriend or boyfriend, or just things with their friends or on the team. I mean, there's so much going on. And I think it's really important, like you said, to take the time. And when you recognize that they're having a hard time, to just say, hey, what's going on? And to let them talk, because they do need to talk.
So I think the players are starting to learn that about me. I had some of my players, I go a little bit early to help them if they want to work on any of their skills, and I stay a little bit late for the same reason too. And so this is kind of the later part. So practice is done, and what's another fun little suggestion for teaching and coaching? If you can find ways to motivate your students or your players, be innovative and creative. So one of my players is he kicks our conversion points. So that means that after we score what's called a try, we have an opportunity to get 2 conversion points with a kick. And so he's our kicker. And to motivate him to get better, I told him, I said, hey man, for every conversion kick you land this season, I'll hit a backflip on the sideline. And he was like, what? For real? I was like, for reals, bro. I'll hit that backflip every time. He's like, he's like, it's on. So so he's like practicing really hard. And so this is one of those times afterwards where he's practicing, and then we start talking, speaking to a couple other players, and I start asking him a little bit about life, what's going on with family and things. And they start sharing some things with me. And I took that opportunity to kind of give a little bit of advice, some suggestions, and they were just like pretty receptive, right? Because sometimes we close out our parents. Our parents are super wise and stuff, but we've heard them for so long that we end up like totally tuning them out. I'm sure they give the same kind of advice, but I was sharing some stuff, and they're just like, yeah, that's cool. Like, so they started to like recognize that I'm old and wise, not only on the sport of rugby, but like your life too. I could give some stuff. They're like, man, I'm gonna come to you, coach, for more stuff. Oh, that's what I'm here for, I'm not a coach just from 5:30 to 7. I'm a coach 24/7.
Right.
Nice. So that was cool that they could see that.
So, all right, we're back. And so, Coach, where did you get your inspiration as you went into your first year of coaching? Was there anything in particular that you tapped into to help you through your first year?
Yeah. Well, YouTube is always great. So sometimes you got to brush up on some things of the game. Things have changed since when I last played. So I had to try and constantly be an active learner, trying to get myself up to date with the rules and everything.
I like that.
But one thing that was helpful for me was I was recommended to read this book, and multiple people have encouraged me to read this book, especially when they heard that that I played rugby. So the name of the book is called Legacy. Sure. So
nice.
So in Legacy, so what it says here, it's by James Kerr. It says what the All Blacks can teach us about the business of life. So for all those who don't know, so the All Blacks is the national team from New Zealand for rugby.
Amazing team.
Amazing team. So if you ever see any videos with guys doing the haka with it, like, that's the All Blacks. And so they are arguably the most successful sport team in all of history, because they have like their entire life of their team, they've won about 86% of their games. So they have like a high winning percentage overall to date. But what was really helpful about it is within the book, so there are 15 positions on the rugby pitch. And what they do is they kind of break down 15 principles that the All Blacks have absorbed and done that is contributed to their success, and they apply it to business. And so
Cool.
what did I use it for? I use it to talk about, because these are all rugby values that we teach anyways, but to hear some of their examples of how they teach or apply those principles is something that I've been trying to absorb and implement within our coaching. And that's been really helpful.
I like that. Because you talk about character, you just reminded me of character education. And while there is such curriculum, I've never felt to just specifically teach, oh, today we're going to talk about integrity. You know what I mean? I feel like there are a lot of opportunities to weave that into your daily lessons or just even conversations. Although you just reminded me of, because I love teaching with movies. And so you reminded me of one of my favorite clips to use when I teach character education is from that movie Facing the Giants, where, he's got to do the bear crawl, right? Blindfolded, because the coach is telling him, you're not giving your best. So I want you to try to go to the 20-yard line, doing bear crawl, blindfolded. But I want you to do it with Jeremy on your back, right? I love that clip. Anyway, but you just reminded me of how powerful it is to be a teacher, how powerful it is to be a coach, and how much influence you have on the minds of these children or teenagers or adolescents. And to me, it is a very sacred responsibility, because they're with you every day, or, as a teacher, they're with you Monday through Friday, or, with you as a coach, on the days that you have practice or whenever you see them. And they really do take what you say, and they're going to remember it for the rest of your life. Like, is there a coach or a teacher that you remember, something that they said or did that had an impact in your life?
Yeah, teachers are huge. I remember I had a math teacher, an algebra teacher when I was in high school, and boy, she was a tough one. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't pass that class with a flying A, but she demanded and expected the best from us. And she was very straightforward. She's Tongan, so she was speaking fob style. She'd be like, "Hey, David, what is this? You can do better." And like, she's saying that in front of the whole class, right? So, she had always encouraged me, like to do better. She's like, "I know you can do better. You can do better." So, okay. So that kind of positive reinforcement is always nice. She was being genuine. She does, in the belly, not the back, even in front of the whole class.
Yeah, you just remind me. So I was thinking about what teachers stand out in my mind as far as an impact. I mean, there's a lot of teachers that I remember. And then I thought, well, what was it about them that that they specifically had an impact? So I remember having a teacher my freshman year in high school who also coached track. I can't remember if he coached track or cross country or both. But anyway, so he always came in wearing his shorts, and I swear he had a whistle around his neck. Just kidding. But just super intense.
Did he have a beard?
No.
Oh.
But I remember, he was very particular about how he did things. And, it was one of those things where you remember, did he ever smile? But the one thing, I mean, social studies, and I remember just constant quizzes on maps, right? We had to memorize maps and maps and maps and maps. And I feel like his coaching style was also brought into the classroom, but then probably also, his classroom style he probably brought to coaching. But his consistency and being organized, I think, is what really stood out to me. because I know there's so much going on with teachers that sometimes it's easy to just maybe go off on a tangent, but the ones that were really organized, I feel like I remember them the most. There was another teacher that I had in high school, economics, my senior year. And she's, for some reason, I feel like she's the only one that consistently wrote the agenda on the board. When I look back.
The
And
things we remember. Huh?
And I remember what I liked about that is because she had the agenda on the board and she would always check it off. So you knew where we were next in our lesson. I thought that was fantastic.
It's funny you mentioned that because I do that. Like whenever I'm teaching in the class.
Nice.
Because I want people to know what we're going to cover and that they'll see, are we halfway done or not? Well, how much time is left? We better be quiet so that we can get through,
Right. I mean, like time, like that's a really big thing for me. I know that sometimes people go over, like if practice or if class is a certain time, it drives me crazy. Or even a meeting. If the meeting goes over, that always drives me crazy. And I always feel like that's super disrespectful to people's time. And so for me in my class, I have my Google Slides and I always tell them what we're doing in class. And then they always know how we're going to wrap up at the end. But I feel like, even that, because sometimes things don't always go the way that you want them to. But if you can at least really stick to your plan as best as you can, because sometimes, things happen and maybe you spend a little more time on something that the kids needed more than others. But I think there's something to be said about being organized and watching your time. So if you had to give advice to a new teacher from the perspective of a parent, what advice would you give a new teacher?
One thing that I've learned now that I'm starting my second year in coaching, because we're in week 4 of practices already, so I'm starting to learn this a little bit better, is that the parent involvement is critical, because there's only so much that we can do as a coach, but there are things that can be done by the parents that can help the student or the player to excel. I'll give you an example. So I have one parent who is super engaged. Like she wants to know everything. She calls me, she'll just call me up and be like, hey, I saw this clinic. Is this something that my child should be going to? And so we would talk that out or whatever. And then we have some parents who just kind of let their kids do their own thing. And I may never see them or hear from them. There are some parents that don't have to be that far on the spectrum as like the one that's like super engaged or the one that's like never around. Just recently, we had some parents kind of coming in the middle. So one of my, the mom and the dad came out to practice on Monday. And so I was asking the player, I was like, who's that? And he's like, oh, it's my parents. I was like, what are your parents doing there? He's like, I don't know. And they saw that practice was done and they walked onto the field and they told me, they're like, hey, we've heard so much about you from our son. We had to come see you for myself. We had to see, well, who is this guy, right? Because he's getting some kind of positive influence and motivation somewhere. We think it's you. And so we spent about 45 minutes talking about what kind of vision and plans that, we have as coaches for this player and what we think they could do to help their child be successful. And it was a meeting of the minds where we were able to kind of come together. And I felt like, okay, this is going to be successful. Sometimes you feel like you're lifting alone when you can lift together. And it felt like after that meeting was a lift together.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's so true about parent involvement. Throughout my career, being in education about 15 years, I would say every year there's maybe a handful, like I could count on one hand, the parents that took the initiative to be involved. But then there are also the parents that when you reached out to them, that they would get involved. And that's always awesome too. Any help from parents is always going to be a positive experience for not only their child, but the other kids too. You reminded me, and the importance of parents giving feedback, right? We talk about giving positive reinforcement to the kids. It's really nice when parents reach out to teachers and coaches and let them know about those positive things that they see at home, because otherwise, how would you know? Like a lot of times, children don't always show their true colors at school, how they are at home, and then vice versa. Sometimes how they are at home, the parents don't get to see how they are at school. But you reminded me of an experience, because again, it's very rare when parents will actually take the initiative to say something. But I do remember this one parent that came to me after teaching seniors government, and she came to me and she said, I can't remember if we were at an event or something, but she said, you know what, I wanted to tell you, thank you so much for teaching my son. Because of you, my son watches the news and he's always talking about, because at the time there was the presidential election, talking about the election and talking about the economy, and it just blows my mind the things that he's learning and taking in and wants to talk about. And he said this because he always talks about current events in your class. And I thought, that's so awesome, because you just don't know.
How did that make you feel?
That was awesome. It made me feel like, all right, I'm reaching people.
And I think that's an element that we overlook, like the value of gratitude and appreciation, because teachers, coaches, they do a lot of great stuff.
They do.
But the thank yous don't always come so freely.
Right.
And these types of moments is when we're like, what I'm doing is rewarding. To hear something like that, that brings me joy. And that's cool. It's cool. Like that.
It's super cool. And also too, when you get feedback from the kids themselves, like I remember like the following year after some kids graduated and they came back for Christmas or whatnot. And I found out that like at least 6 kids that I talked to that came back to visit were in college studying political science because they took their class with me. And I would talk about politics a lot in my class. And that's super cool too, because, theoretically you think about, okay, well, as a teacher, people have an impact on kids, but to really see that their life decisions are based on something they learned from you or just your example, I think that's so powerful. And I know that you'll continue to see that as a coach, as your team graduates and then they turn around and come back, or they share stories with you because they're coaching or whatnot. That'll be really exciting. But do you have any closing thoughts that you want to share about maybe some final tips as a coach or for teachers?
Sure. I'll just say that it takes time and patience when you're working with people. Think about it as like you're growing a plant. And so you start off with the seed and that it's a mango tree, but the people that you're trying to coach or teach, they may not be able to understand or see it, especially if they've never seen a mango tree before. And so you got to water it, you got to nurture it, and you got to keep explaining your vision over and over again, that this is a great, delicious fruit, just kind of stick with me. And what I've noticed in taking that time to invest with players, board members, parents, the community, that's important too. Like to find ways to tie the community in with our club. I've learned that I'm starting to see a year later it pay off. So it takes time. You're not going to see mango tree tomorrow after you plant the seed, but I'm starting to see rewards come in. So just kind of stay patient, invest that time with your students or your players. If you're not a people person, that's okay. Just like try and do little things to be able to get to know people better, whatever that is for you. It could be through social media, it could be through a phone call or a text message or an email, but just whatever it is to kind of get to know your people that are in your circle of influence, because when you start learning more about them, people start to see that you care about them. So
Yeah.
when you ask them for things or to do something, to run partner, to show up to practice on time, they're willing to do it because they know that you invest so much in them. It's easy for them to try and do something for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's so great. It was so awesome talking to you. I really appreciate all the insight that you had to share. Thank you so much for taking a chance of being my second guest on my YouTube channel. And maybe you'll come back again. Maybe.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Well, as always, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and always remember, you got this. All right. Thank
Nice.
you.
Yeah.
Woo.
Great secrets.
I'm just strategically placed. No, so the computer is like right up in my face. Like I can't go too far back just because of the frame of the camera. Right? The frame of the camera. If I push it further away, then you see the wall.
The wall.
So
It's getting so hot.
yeah, it's getting hot in here.
It get hotter.
No, it's getting hot in here. Okay, let me turn. I didn't turn the light off. I was getting
Okay, hot.
so look at how white I am. Oh my gosh. Need to get out more. No, I have been outside, just not as much as you.
I know. I'm like out there every day.
But even when we were little, you remember there's that one picture where you're like, are you you're standing by the bushes? We were to take a picture. You're standing by the bushes or in the shade or something, right? You're just like,
It's like kind of disappear.
right. And then
Scrubs.
you close your eyes and nobody can see you.
Where'd you go? You don't see me when I smile.
Eggs.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is. Tuxedo. How's it going, Tuxedo?
I gotta put the treat right above the camera so he looks at
So that he'll look at me. You looking at me or the treat?
you.
Okay, clearly he's looking at the treat because he's licking his lips.
He's like, well, I gotta go.
I got business. I'm busy. I got some
I got
business to take
business.
care of. Where'd you
No,
get your
she-
shirts?
So up. Good boy. So all of them I get from Amazon.
Okay.
I just check them out because my goal is to get the sport out there. So every
yeah.
time I wear the shirt, people are always looking or asking, like, "What's up, man? You play rugby, or is there a rugby team around here?" Like, so it's my way of trying to get our brand out there by constantly wearing different rugby shirts because it catches people's eyes and people have a question.
Right. I know. I actually found that shirt on Amazon. While you were
Yeah.
talking about it. Talking about your swag. I did find it on Amazon. Right here.
Oh yeah. And I have another one that has, instead of the Red Cross, it has like a drop of blood. And
Oh, I
this one
think
says give blood, play rugby. That other one has a drop of blood, it's black, and it says donate blood, play
I
rugby.
think that's the one that Michael commented on.
Oh yeah.
Like, I like a shirt.
Okay, so that reminds me. So I have a fan going. Can you hear it on the mic?
I can't, but over here I hear my refrigerator. So whatever
I don't hear the
Oh, you don't
fridge.
hear? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to turn off my air because I was concerned because for me it sounds like I don't know Oh, it sounds on the other side because every time I record, I always turn it off and then I end up sweating. Okay, just in case. Because I have this cover thing. Because I put this.
Wipe it down.
Let me
Wipe me
swipe
down.
it. I'm looking kind of blurry. No, because I put a cover over the camera. That's why. Just want to make sure there's no sticky residue.
Mm. Was that on point? That's on point, right?
No, seriously. Whenever I clear my throat, I'm like, I sound like Dad.
Like, I get 2 minutes, you get 2 minutes. That's not very exciting. Like,
right.
you talk, I can't say anything. It's like, no, you can say something. You can say whatever you want, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think it gives a glimpse of our interaction in real life, right? So we're not like this in real life. Well, perhaps we should do it this way. You know, like, that's not us in real life, but like in real life, we're like hilarious, right? So whatever, to give the viewer something that's us, that when that personality totally comes out, that's interesting watch right there to see.
That's true. I would completely agree with that. I hope you have a great and successful season. It's going to be fantastic.
This picture is of myself with Lauren, and with Lauren, actually, there's two opportunities where I got a chance to be with her. First and foremost, it was as an early morning seminary teacher. So for church, I'd see her every morning, Monday through Friday, from 6 a.m. to 6:50 a.m. So I had a chance to kind of build a little relationship there with her. During that time, she got into rugby, and she knew that I had played before, so she had asked me for some tips and some suggestions, and she had me come watch her games, and I would videotape them, and then we break down film together afterwards and just talk things through, kind of answer her questions, because the game moves so quickly when you're out there on the pitch, but to be able to look back on it and kind of slow things down, I think that was really helpful to kind of break down and understand what's happening with the game, why players are doing what they're doing, ways that can improve and do better. And so in this picture, so it's been a couple years since she's graduated from high school and away from the rugby club, but she still plays rugby in college for her women's club. And so we caught up at breakfast just to kind of catch up, share ideas about different drills, different training ideas, activities, so that we can strengthen both our club here in town, but her club as well out of state. So just another great opportunity, another good example of when you invest that time with your students, your players, you may not see like immediate rewards, but down the line it makes an impact. It makes a difference, and they remember. So in this picture, the three of us here, it's myself with Evan and his brother Hayes. So Evan is the one in the Top Gun shirt holding the rugby ball. And what had happened is that a couple months ago, Evan had asked me, he's one of my graduating seniors, and so a couple months ago he asked me, he's like, "Hey Dave, if I go skydiving, will you come with?" And I was like, sure. So the picture here is us after we had jumped out. We had gone skydiving together. And it was just one of those great opportunities to kind of build and bond together as a player and a coach. I thought that was cool, that he felt comfortable to reach out and ask me if that's something that I'd be willing to do with him. And I'm grateful that he did. And because of that, we have a special experience that we'll always have together, that we can always look back upon. So I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Welcome, brother, to skydiving. How are you?
Good.
Nice, man. Tell me, first time jumping?
Second time.
Second time?
Second time, yeah.
Nice. How are you feeling today?
Feeling good, ready to jump.
Excited, nervous?
No, I'm good, just more excited, yeah. Just more
Nice.
excited.
And tell me, why did you came back? Why are you doing this again?
Well, what happened is that I'm a rugby coach for Brownsburg Rugby Club, and one of my graduating seniors asked me a couple months ago, he said, "Yo, Dave, if I go skydiving, would you come with?" And I was like, yeah.
Okay, right?
That's why we're here.
Nice. And so we are here. We have a beautiful day for this. It's looking really good. A blue sky there. What do you think? Are you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm so ready. Skies look great. Hopefully we can get a little higher elevation, which means a longer drop.
Nice, man. Have fun, okay?
Thank you.
Phew. How was it?
Oh, it was amazing. Oh, it was so great. The exhilaration, speed.
Nice.
And then, of course, the shoot, and then it's quiet, and you enjoy the wonderful scenery.
This beautiful day that we have, right?
Beautiful day. Beautiful day.
Nice, man. You did amazing. How is your instructor Thomas here? Let's go! Let's go, Thomas! Welcome, brother. Thanks for trusting.